of Columbia, because many of you are not aware that the modern version of the District of Columbia Democratic State Committee, which is the governing body for the party, was actually began its existence in the 1940s during the Truman administration. And so whenever we have a gathering, we try to share another little tidbit about the Democratic Party that you hold so dear and is so important in your lives and the lives of the people that we try to make better through our party activities. So that's one fact. Another fact is that the Kennedy King is a regular major fundraising activity by the party, and it began in the 1980s. And so you are a part of a wonderful tradition, and we hope to continue this tradition probably for a century or so to come. So there you go. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to serve as your mistress of ceremonies this evening, and we're going to move forward with the awards because, as you can tell from our program, we have a number of awards, tributes that we're paying to outstanding Democrats, not just here from the District of Columbia, but also from the national community. And one particular award that we're very proud of is the National Democrat of 2016 award, and that will be presented to the Honorable Tom Carper, who is a senator, the U.S. Senator from the great state of Delaware, and the presenter will be Christine Walking. Now, Christine is head of our ethnic caucus of the party, and she's a leader in our own right. If you have not been invited to her television program, I don't know why not. So, Christine, come forward, please.
Hello, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Anita, our great leader, Anita Bonds. So on behalf of Anita, our Kennedy King Gala chairs, and the entire D.C. Democratic State Committee, I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing our honored guest, the senior senator from Delaware, Senator Tom Carper. Say that Senator Carper, a little unknown fact until yesterday, I found this out, was actually born in the great state of West Virginia. And he knows fully well that West Virginia mountains made life difficult, and family members had to depend upon one another for help. The senator has lived his entire life helping families, and tonight we are definitely claiming Senator Carper as part of our family. No one has understood it more justly than Senator Carper when it comes to advocating on behalf of the people of the District of Columbia. He has stood up for the rights of district residents when, as chair of the United States Senate Homeland Committee on Governmental Affairs, he introduced legislation that would make D.C. the first 51st state. Following the bill's introduction, he chaired the first hearing on D.C. statehood in decades, I'll tell you, bringing national awareness to the stain upon our nation's democracy. As our champion, we could not have a more eloquent, a more compassionate, a more committed supporter. And tonight, we honor him for his service, and I stress this, for his service in the Vietnam War. We honor him for his service as Treasurer of Delaware. We honor him for all the work he has done in the House of Representatives. We honor him as Governor of Delaware. And now we honor him, of course, for his tireless work in the United States Senate. But for some brief moments tonight, we honor him for all that he is doing for us in the nation's capital, in fighting for making something very wrong, something very right. Because of his leadership qualities and his belief that no American should be taxed without equal representation, the D.C. State Democratic Party is so privileged to present Senator Tom Carper with the 2016 Democrat of the Year Award. Senator Carper.
Anita said this is not to drink out of, this is for my flowers. Big drinkers in Delaware, so. Anita, just hold this for me for just a second. Christine, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Give Christine a big round of applause. Thank you. Give this lady, give Anita a big round of applause. You know, we all need in every state, and at least we got people just like you. Thank you for being our that's true. I was inspired, first of all, thank you very much for the recognition, not undeserved, but not unappreciated. Thank you for doing that, for giving me some recognition for doing what I think is the right thing to do. I was inspired by the words of Reverend George Holmes tonight in his invocation. And he spoke to us from the Old Testament. Talks to us about those Egyptians and Pharaoh. And I want to take us up to the New Testament. My mom always wanted me to grow up and be a preacher. And there was a Baptist church right across the street from our house where we grew up in Danville, Virginia, right on the North Carolina border, just north of Greensboro. And my mom took my sister and me to church every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, every Wednesday night, and most Thursday nights. A lot of people think they don't have church 4 times a week. Well, we did in our church, and my mom made sure we were there. She wanted to grow up and be a preacher. Right behind that church was a baseball diamond. Actually, it's a big old field. And the kids in the neighborhood, we turned it into a baseball field, Field of Dreams. I wanted to grow up and be third baseman for the Detroit Tigers. And I never got the call from on high. I never got the call from the Tigers. And I ended up following a different path. Thanks to the good Lord, I won a Navy ROTC scholarship, went to Ohio State. I studied a little economics. My professors would tell you not enough, but enough to keep my scholarship, enough to graduate, and went off to serve in a war on the other side of the world in Southeast Asia. 3 tours, 5 years, and got out of the Navy and took a reserve commission, moved to Delaware, got an MBA on the GI Bill, and ended up as a Navy captain. And I love the Navy. Do you have any veterans here? If you're a veteran, stand up. If you're a veteran, stand up. Let's give them some love. I want to again thank Anita Bonds, and I want to recognize, and I'm sure you'll have other folks that we recognize, but I want to acknowledge Tommy Wells is here, and former city councilman. And hold your applause if you will, hold your applause. And then we're just going to applaud all at once. All right? So, here we go. Brandon is here. We got Paul Strauss, one of our shadow senators. We got Phil Mendelson, who's the city council chair, and Franklin Garcia, the shadow U.S. rep, and we got the parents of the mayor. The parents of the mayor, Mr. and Mrs. Bowden. Would you just stand up for us? Stand up and take a bow. Go ahead. Nice round of applause. Come on, give them some love. All right. One of the great things that I get to do is nominate young men and women to go to the Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, West Point, and Merchant Marine Academy. And out of the 10 or so that I nominate every year for each academy, 1 or 2 are picked by the academies and win an appointment. And when we find out about it, usually in February, maybe March, I call those individual young men and women on the phone when we get the word and to congratulate them. I always ask to talk to their parents as well. And you talk about parents who are proud and happy for their kids who won this big scholarship and go off to serve in the Navy or Army, Air Force, Marine Corps. And I always say to the parents, when a young son or daughter turns out as well as your son or daughter has turned out, the parents had something to do with it. So I just want to say to the two of you, thank you for raising your daughter as you have done. I asked them, I was just kidding, I said, how long have you known her? And they said, all her life. You're not going to tell me how old she is, but I think that's a matter of public record. And I know that you're here, and she's here yet, but Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, she's a friend and just a wonderful servant to all of you. I'm going to go back to the New Testament. Pope, do we have any Catholics here? Any Catholics here? Any Catholics here? We've got a couple. My family and I are Presbyterians now. I ran into a guy earlier coming in. He said, I said, you're in the military? Somebody introduced me as a military guy. And he said, yep. And I said, what branch of service? I said, I'm a Navy guy. And he said, I'm in the Army. Kind of said something disparaging about the Navy. And I said, you know, we have different uniforms. We're on the same team. Think about that. Different uniforms. We're on the same team. And we're all, maybe some of us wearing different uniforms here tonight, but we are on the same team. Now I'm going to talk, work off of, kind of reflect off of what George Holmes said earlier. Pope Francis was in the town last September. He addressed a joint session of the Congress. And when he addressed the joint session of Congress, he told a story. And it's a story you might recognize here in a minute. And he went back 2,000 years ago to tell the story. And he said there was a fellow traveling in a country. This is a story that was initially told about 2,000 years ago by a guy who was a rabbi. And this rabbi told his story about a guy traveling in a country one day, and he was set upon by thieves. And they beat him within an inch of his life, left him in a ditch along the side of the road, and took everything he had and ran away. And later that day, a fellow came along the road, and he's from the same part of the country that the guy in the ditch is from. He's like almost like a neighbor. And did he stop and help his friend in the ditch? Nope. He kept right on going. Didn't even look over. Later that day, a man of the cloth came by. Another rabbi came by and looked over the ditch, saw the guy in the ditch. Did he stop? Nope. He just went right on by. A little bit later, another guy comes by. The third guy comes by the road, and he's from another part of the country that they don't actually get along well with the folks from the country part of the country the guy in the ditch was from. It's like Ohio State and Michigan, Philadelphia Eagles and Redskins. In any event, the third guy, who's not anything close to being a friend to the guy in the ditch, he stops. He stops to see what's wrong. And he sees the guy's beaten badly, could die. Nothing happens, and he stops and he helps him get on his animal, puts him on his donkey, and they go to a nearby inn. And they get a room, and the fellow sort of rescues the guy that's all beaten up. He takes care of him for a day and night. And the next day he's got to leave, and he talks to the innkeeper, and he says, I got to leave now, I got to head on, but this fellow's still not well enough to travel. I'm going to leave you some money to pay for this room and for feeding him. Take care of him for a couple more days. When he's ready to go, use what money you need. And if you need more, I'll be back through a couple of weeks and I'll make up the difference. And the person that's told that story was a guy named Jesus. And he now told that story after being asked this question by a bunch of guys named Pharisees. The Pharisees were always trying to trick Jesus, get him in trouble with the Romans. And they asked him this question. They said, Jesus, you're so smart. Tell us the greatest commandment of all. And the young rabbi 2,000 years ago says, there's not one great rule, but there's two greatest commandments. And the first is to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, all thy mind. And he said the second great commandment is to love thy neighbor as thyself. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And the Pharisee said, well, who is my neighbor? And he told him that story I've just shared with you. And then he said to them, of those three fellows traveling down the road that day, who was the neighbor? Who was the neighbor? And out of that story comes the parable of the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan. And the question is, who is our neighbor? And the day when Pope Francis addressed the joint session of Congress several months ago, he reminded us all that we are one another's brothers and sisters, and that we ought to treat one another the way we want to be treated. Well, I just want to say, how would the citizens of Wyoming and Vermont, states of Wyoming and Vermont, want to be treated if they did not have anybody to represent them and have a vote in the U.S. House or the U.S. Senate? How would they like that? They wouldn't like it. The reason why I raised those two states is because the District of Columbia has more people than either of those states. How would you like to be treated? And how about those 15 states in the United States of America whose gross domestic product, whose GDP is actually less than the District of Columbia? How would they like to be treated? They all have representatives, they all have senators, some have many senators, many representatives, and how would they like to have none and have no voice to actually vote on the floor of the House, or no vote to vote on this? How, they wouldn't like it. And for me, I approach this issue as a matter, really a matter of faith. And if we actually do believe we're one another's brothers and keepers, and we do believe that we have a right to treat other people, that a responsibility to treat other people the way we want to be treated, then we need to do something about this situation in this capital city of our country. Can I get an amen? Amen. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to acknowledge. I just want to say one last thing. We had a rally for three presidential candidates, three separate rallies for presidential candidates last week in Delaware, southern part of our state, Harrington, where our state fairgrounds is, south of Dover. A bunch of people showed up for a fellow Republican running for president. And my seat mate in the United States Senate, his name's Bernie Sanders, was with us. Bernie was there. He, every now and then in the last several years, when I sit right next to Bernie, I feel the burn. Feel the burn. And on Monday of this week, Hillary Clinton was there and came to the Queen Theater, live at the Queen, and it was very, very well received. We had our primary, and I know you all are going to have your primary in June 14th. I want to close with this. Joe Biden likes to say that elections are about the future. He always likes to say elections are about the future. I'd like to amend that just a little bit and say elections are about who's going to lead us, who is going to lead us into the future. That's what elections are about. And we are going to, we need to elect not a king. We don't want to elect somebody running for king. We're not interested in electing a queen either. We want a leader. And when I've had the chance to be around a lot of great leaders, and some that weren't so good in my life, and here's the kind of leader I think we ought to look for, find, and vote for. And here's the qualities. You decide who matches up. A leader ought to be somebody who's humble, not haughty. We need a leader who has the heart of a servant, who realizes that our job is to serve, not be served. Leaders who have the courage to stay out of step when everybody else is marching to the wrong tune. Leaders who believe in that we should not just say do to others, do what I say, but rather do what I do, that we lead by our example. We need a leader in this country who believe in not in building walls, but in building bridges that will unite us as a people. That's the kind of leader we need. Can I get an amen? We need a leader who's actually read those words in the United States Capitol that say, "E pluribus unum," from many, one. We need a leader who is aspirational, who appeals to people's better angels, who realizes we don't build ourselves up by tearing other people down. And finally, we need a leader who focuses on doing what is right, not what is easy or what is expedient, but what is right. We need a leader who actually embodies the golden rule to treat other people the way we want to be treated. We need a leader who focuses on excellence, everything we do, and if it isn't perfect, let's make it better. And we need a leader who, when that leader knows that he or she is right, they don't give up. They just never give up. That's the kind of leader that we need in this country. And I'm confident at the end of our nominating process in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, just up the road from the first state of Delaware, I'm certain that when we leave that place, head out across the country to go out and elect a president, we're going to nominate to be a leader for our country, a person who meets those qualities. Let's go do it. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Let's give the senator another round of applause. Before we go further, I would like to acknowledge other officials in our assembly this evening. Ward 2 Council Member Jack Evatt. Also, as we all know, is the new chairman of WMATA. So that's how we move around. So that's very important. Also, my other colleagues from the council are here. Brianne Nadeau from Ward 1. Charles Allen, Ward 6. Ward 5 is also our chair pro tem, and of course my at-large colleague Vincent Arias. We also have with us now the National Committee woman, Mary Eva Camden. Our alternate national committee woman, Pat Elwood, who's in the shadows helping us out. I can see you. And our alternate national committee man, Phil Pennell, who's been around as long as I have. Thank you very much. And now our very special guest, because we are in their place. The president of the University of the District of Columbia, Dr. Ronald Mason, would you please stand to be acknowledged? We'd love to have you be acknowledged. We're going to move along because I know you want to have a little time before the evening closes or the clock strikes midnight. And we intend on you having some time before then. So our next award, we'll put a pin in it because that's the award to our own mayor, and so she is en route. So we will move now to the Richard Rausch Outstanding Legislators Award, and we have two contenders for this. That is the Honorable Phil Mickelson and the Honorable Kenyon McDuffie, and it will be presented by Chuck Berger, who is the Ward 6 Democratic Chair. You will all come forward. We can expedite our process. Let's give them a round of applause. This is serious business. Democrats, this is serious.
Good evening. Tonight we're here to honor Richard Rouse, which was a longtime activist, Ward 6 resident, and extremely valuable not only to our community but also to the district. And tonight is the Richard Rausch Outstanding Legislature Award, and we have two fine recipients this evening and worthy of the award. And DC Council Chairman Phil Mickelson and Council Pro Tem Kenyon.
That's right.
Phil Mendelson has been an active participant in district politics since 1975, when he became a member of the McLean Gardens Residents Association. While there, he was a large part of the effort to save the 43-acre housing complex from demolition. If I recollect, I think he was chained to a tree for a number of hours. He later ran for and was elected as an ANC commissioner in '79 until he took office as an at-large member of the council. First elected to the DC Council in '98, Chairman Mendelson has become one of the district's most popular council members. At 37 years and counting, we believe he is the longest-serving elected official in DC history. This is a Trump speech. I don't necessarily represent everything I'm saying tonight. Except,
Do what you gotta do.
elected as chair in 2012 and re-elected in 2014, Chairman Mendelson leads the council on all legislative matters. Phil also presides over the Committee of the Whole, which has the responsibility of the district budget and leads relations with the executive branch and the federal government. Our second recipient, Kenyon McDuffie, began his career in public service while working for Congresswoman Norton. Following his graduation, summa cum laude from Howard University. Since being elected to the council, Kenyon McDuffie has become a leading legislator. He ushered through campaign finance, ethics reform, and transparency in the financing of the district's elections, something we Democrats all hold dear. He is instrumental in expanding funding to create and preserve affordable housing to ensure that the district remains home to families across the city. As chair of the Judiciary Committee, he most recently championed a comprehensive bill that affects how the district approaches public safety. It not just addresses crime after it occurs, but rather by working to prevent crime by treating its root causes in a long-term, sustainable way. As the Ward 5 representative, he has ensured that Ward 5 residents have improved access to social services while prioritizing investments along Ward 5's major corridors and neighborhoods and parks to benefit the community where he grew up. Please join me in applauding two great legislators, Chairman Phil Mendelson and Councilmember Kenyon McDuffie.
First of all, good evening. Second of all, thank you very much. Thank you for this. I appreciate it very much. Third, I want you to know I'm going to confess I'm under enormous pressure here. Councilman McDuffie's pointing out that I should speak for less than 60 seconds, although I would like to note publicly that whenever he says that and then he speaks, it's always for at least several times longer. And then I'm looking at Councilmember Evans, who's probably still trying to do the math, as am I, how I could be the longest serving elected official. I believe, Jack, you pointed out, you date back to Pierre Lafont? So, but I think that's because ANC services included. Sorry you can't hear me, but it's not worth hearing. So, but let me just say this. You know, as we go through this presidential election year, I think it's a time when we as Democrats can reflect on the values of this party. And the values of this party are good, and we see them in contrast particularly to the folks on the other side of the aisle, and the values of this party are good. We are not anti-government, we are not anti-people, we are not negative. Where we disagree over how to be positive, how to do more, and to do better, to help those who need it, a helping hand. Those are our values, and I think that this is a year when we have the benefit of being able to reflect on those values. So I do want to thank the party. I want to thank the leaders of the party. I want to thank those who did a lot of work putting this evening's event together. And I'll turn to my colleague, Councilmember McDuffie.
I will keep my remarks brief, but it'd be remiss if I were to leave the stage without thanking all the folks who helped to make this evening possible, including our chair of the party, Anita Bonds. Let's give her a round of applause. And I honestly want to thank the people who put me in office to make sure that I could pass all these great laws that I've passed. I look out in the audience, I see a lot of Ward 5 residents. Where are you, Ward 5? There we go. Well represented here. I also want to recognize my colleagues at the council who are also here, Jack Evans and all the other folks who've been mentioned. I think Brianna Doe was mentioned, Councilmember Orange. I want to recognize our mayor who's here, Mayor Muriel Bowser. Let's give her a round of applause. They've already been recognized, but they're two of my favorite Ward 5 residents, and those are the first parents, Mr. and Mrs. Bowser. Let's give them another round of applause. Still going strong. And finally, I just want to say, I passed these laws. I've been working really hard. The name of this dinner is Kennedy's King. Both families and individuals who work really hard in civil rights to really make our country what it is today, to give all these opportunities to so many people like myself. I wasn't around when they were putting in the work, but I like to think I'm a student of the civil rights movement. And quite frankly, I honed a lot of my skills at Howard University, but before I got to Howard University, I was walking the halls of the University of the District of Columbia, and really proud to be an alumni of the University of the District of Columbia. So thank you, President Mason, for all the work that you're doing. Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. Let's keep it going, Democrats. Thank you so much. And Congressman Minority, too. Thank you so much.
Democrats, we're going to move right along. Can you hear me over in the corners of the room? All right. I'll be on my tippy toes so that I can reach you. That's right, Mayor. I'm on my tippy toes. That's right. Women have to step to the beat, whatever it is. Right? Vincent Orange? All right. Okay. And we're going to get through our program in the next 25 minutes. Okay? Our next presentation is our Statehood Excellence Awards. And we have three awardees: Franklin Garcia, Anise.
The mayor, don't forget the mayor. The mayor is here.
Oh, well, let's do the statehood and then come back for the mayor. Franklin Garcia, Anise Jenkins, and Josh Birch. Now, Josh can't be with us this evening. We all know what he did recently. He led us in a very effective march. He's not with us because he has to take care of his young children because his wife comes back out of town trip not till tomorrow. So we forgive him. And so we'll probably have an opportunity to present his at a later time. But please come forward. And to just make opening remarks regarding this award, we'll have our own longest-serving statehood Senator Paul Strauss. And the senior statehood senator from the District of Columbia.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here to help present these awards for statehood advocacy. This is a movement that is on the move. It is going citywide under the leadership of our mayor. We are going to be recommitting ourselves to this effort on the ballot in November. But as you heard from Senator Carper, we have friends around the country, we have allies around the country, and part of the reason our movement is so strong is because of the activism of the people we are honoring here tonight. So these are important awards for an important cause, and I'm just so honored to be part of a movement with these outstanding Democrats who are taking this issue around the country. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Sylvia Martinez, Corresponding Secretary for the State Committee. It is such a great honor for me to be presenting to you our representative, Franklin Garcia, who is an incredible advocate for all of us. It is such a privilege because he's one of my fellow Caribbeans. So I am just totally proud of him. Franklin Garcia is completely passionate with regard to equality to all. And that has been the progress of his history, not only working with the community, but now working towards statehood. When we talk about passion for statehood, let me just say that he's a little bit more than passionate. He's quite obsessed.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we have a television program. He's all over the place, not only here in Washington, D.C., but throughout the whole United States with his fellow colleagues, senators, shadow senators. So they make a wonderful team, and I am, again, so proud. He is a member of the Latino Caucus, has worked very hard for just so many causes. So we are seeing a lot of progress for statehood. Thank you so much, Franklin, for so much work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, and thank you so much for recognizing something that I enjoy doing so much. I am going to be very brief, but I do want to recognize Theodora Brown, who with me goes everywhere and does so much work. So thank you so much. You know, this is a labor of love for a lot of us, and so we're just very thrilled to be able to participate at a time that our mayor is introducing some new energy into this movement. Very excited to be part of it. The last thing I want to say is 2 nights ago, I had the opportunity of recognizing, a great loss we had, which was one of our biggest voices in statehood. That was Jerry Clark.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we remember his value. Jerry Clark was such an advocate for statehood and so many different things, and so it is such a loss for us to endure currently. So we're always going to remember him, and I just want to recognize that he's not with us. I know he would have been here if he was alive. Thank you so much.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Janice Haynes Davis, and I get to introduce a very special lady. I think I started working in politics at maybe around age 8 when I was in school and got to visit, and then I found out I didn't have a vote. And I see this young lady everywhere. I think you probably see her everywhere. But as past president of the National Federation of Democratic Women and the person who worked and sat beside so many other women who could talk about their state senators and talk about their state representatives, I got to talk about our First Lady, and everyone knew her, our Congresswoman, but I had to tell them that she did not have a vote. I used to go on Saturdays to Congressman Bontroy's office when I was a teenager, and we talked about statehood. And one thing I learned, basically, we can talk a lot, and I want to thank Senator Harper about basically walking the walk. This is a lady who not only walks the walk, she does it day and night. She does it without pay. She does it just tirelessly. I went to a Black Georgetown Remembered event this weekend, and it was celebrating emancipation, our emancipation. And who was there? A niece. It is my pleasure to actually, I would like all of you all to see this lady who is Miss Free DC. So they could talk about Miss America, Miss USA, but she's our own free, not UDC, but I am here, but free DC, Miss Anise Jenkins.
What do we want? Statehood. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Statehood. When do we want it? Now. Let me hear you. What do we want? Statehood. When do we want it? Now. I feel really privileged to get this honor. This is just something that you do out of the belief that you know that things are wrong. I just have to really say thank you so much, Democrats, DC Democrats, I have to thank you. But we also have to acknowledge that we have some Republicans that need to step up to the plate. The Republican Party, we do not have one Republican co-sponsor on the legislation that's before the House or the Senate. I want to acknowledge that we have a mayor here that is stepping up to the plate for statehood. I have to acknowledge that we have our delegate, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who's been fighting for our rights. And all we have to do is hope that everyone in this room feels the anger and the passion that will take us and keep us marching until victory is won. We have members of Stand Up for Democracy who's been fighting since 1997. I want you to stand up at that table. Stand up. We can't do this alone. Don't be shy now. Stand up. Stand up. Thank you so much. I'm really honored. Thank you.
To recognize our mayor, Mayor Muriel Bowser. A woman who has shown us that us women can really do it. We can get it done. And so I'd like to ask her to come to the podium.
And the whole thing breaks apart.
And to also ask Estelle Lloyd, who's going to make the presentation, to come forward.
Good evening, everybody. I stand behind this podium today as a very proud lady. Resident of Ward 4. You may ask me, Estelle, why are you so happy? Why are you so proud? I am so happy. I am so proud because I get to present to my mayor the Joseph L. Brown Distinguished Leadership Award.
That's right.
This is an award that she is so deserving of. What does it take to make a great leader? Muriel Bowser. I looked it up in the dictionary and I saw Muriel Bowser. And it was Webster Dictionary. Not the internet, Webster Dictionary. I have known Mayor Bowser for a long time. I knew her especially when I worked with John Ray and Vincent Orange, both council members, and her father especially. There is I think I'm gonna get this right, a verse in the Bible that says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old,
he will not depart from it. Service, service, service. Service. Mayor Bowser has shown herself to be a leader who has compassion. She wants to make certain that every resident in Ward, I'm sorry, that Ward, in all the wards, all they wards, Councilwoman Todd, I'm still trying to take care of Ward 4, but she wants to make sure everyone, all 8 wards, has a seat at the table. A seat at the table. And she has already, in the months that she has become mayor, to start putting things in action. Look at what she's done. Increase the budget for affordable housing. Bold enough to try to end homeless in this city. Bold enough to close DC General. Bold enough to stretch the hose out, not just in Ward 4, 5, 6, all over the city. All 8 wards. All 8 wards. My mayor is a great mayor. I have a lot of respect for her. I am a member of the DC Federation of Democratic Women, and we are a member of the National Federation. Y'all want to raise your hands over there? In 2012, we had the privilege of nominating Mayor Bowser as the outstanding elected leader of the year, and she won it. We made a good decision there. So, I could say much more. I think I only have a couple of minutes. But I want you to know that when we chose Mayor Bowser, we did good.
Well, good evening, Democrats. It's my pleasure to be here with the best party, the DC Democratic Party. Let's hear it for our chairwoman and all our leaders. President Mason, thank you for welcoming us to the beautiful new Student Center. Isn't it fantastic at our university? Congresswoman, Chairman, council members, distinguished Democrats, I am honored to be your mayor. I am honored to go all over this city and all 8 wards and all over our country and talk about why our party represents the best values, why we speak every day that every American deserves a pathway to the middle class, a good paying job, health care, affordable housing, and a seat at the table. And I am very proud, especially when I look at this presidential race, to know that the Democrats are fighting for the values that we too believe in. That's right. It's been my privilege to work with all of you, and I want to acknowledge all the members of my staff. Especially today, I'm going to acknowledge Beverly Perry, who is our senior advisor. Give Beverly a big round of applause. Beverly and her team put together a wonderful Champions of Democracy breakfast with Council Member Vincent Orange to celebrate Emancipation Day in Washington, D.C. We should all remember that we have a special place in history because it is in Washington, D.C., where Black people were first freed by the President of the United States. And on that day, we reinvigorated our fight for statehood in a call that so many people have embraced to put the question back on the ballot so the new president and the new Congress will have a whole package from the District of Columbia. We want statehood, here are our boundaries, here's our Constitution. Now what? Now we're going to demand that the Congress respond to our petition. So I hope all of you will stay engaged in all of the activities moving forward. And also remember this, on June 14th, us Democrats, we have to stand up again. We're going to be the last primary, right? We're going to go out and vote for our candidates. Now I have a candidate, I'm with her, and I'm going to stick with her. And I'm going to be with her all the way. But we also have to remember
that we have our local races on the ballot, and we want to go out and vote for the people who are going to fight for pathways to the middle class and making our city one that continues the progress, but also includes all Washingtonians. I'm very honored to accept this honor on behalf of the Democrats. Go to the convention with the party and make sure our nominee is in the White House next January.
We will now ask Don Dynam to come to the podium. He is the recipient of the Paula Nickens Activist Award. It will be presented by David Meadows.
Good evening. He's a lawyer in private practice. For many years, Don has remained a necessary and valued fixture in DC Democratic politics, and he currently is our general counsel to the state committee and has provided legal advice to almost every state committee chair and executive body since the late 1970s. Additionally, Don has served as the author of the DC's delegate selection plan for the past 6 national Democratic conventions, and he unquestionably earns the title of the district's foremost authority on DC election law. A former 2-term Ward 6 Democrat president and long-serving elected committeeman, Don Dynam remains active in many charities and causes throughout the city and in Ward 6 for his indelible contributions to the District of Columbia Party and his many years of service. We are pleased to honor Don Dynam with the Paula Nickens Activist Award. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, David. Those were such kind words. One of these days, I'd like to meet that guy. I'm going to be very brief. Tonight, we seem to have a theme of statehood, of voter representation, of inclusion. And I want to expand and add on that right now, past couple years, we are experiencing one of the greatest onslaughts against voting rights that this country has seen since the end of World War II. We have people in the other party who want to see the Voting Rights Act of 63 and the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Civil Rights Act of 62 repealed. We have a federal court judge that just ruled 2 days ago that essentially disenfranchised 800,000 people in the state of North Carolina. We have had similar rulings in the state of Arizona. We have the U.S. Supreme Court, the Attorney General for the state of Texas, 10 days ago, essentially argued for a poll tax. And because he said, well, if they, the state can't pay for the ID, so we have to make them pay for it. All of this is to disenfranchise minorities, people without money, people who are oppressed, and yes, people who support the party of the people, the Democratic Party. And who is leading it? It's the Republican Party, and they're doing it cynically. So we're not the only ones in that sinking boat. But we, in our reach out for statehood and for voting rights, should also work with the rest of people in this country who are seeing their right to vote being taken away in a systematic manner by